like the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs remake has been coming out for the last million years. We've known about the plan to eventually make the film since about 2016, I think. That's when the trades were talking about how it was definitely coming soon. They then got a director in 2019 and started casting. We had the 2 lead roles cast in 2021, and then the first block of filming took place in 2022. I think they even did a bit more filming just last year. Unlike a lot of films that take ages and ages to release, and in the meantime they just sort of fade into obscurity, it seems that Snow White just refused to go away. From the very beginning, this thing had been mired in controversy to the point that everybody just rolls their eyes when it gets mentioned. At the same time though, we're only a little while away from the release of the film in cinemas. And I can't help but feel that all the hatred's getting to be a bit much, isn't it? We have endless video essays, many of them going for way too long, talking about how Disney's in trouble, Zegler's raging, etc, etc. If you've seen one cringeworthy clickbait headline, you've seen them all, and we'll address those in a couple of minutes. Before we can talk much more about that though, I suppose we really do need to set the scene, talk about the journey this film's gone on. Let's just take a quick ramble down memory lane, shall we? On Wikipedia, unlike most films, there's a whole category you could browse through and see just how much has gone wrong in terms of the optics for this movie. I won't go too much in depth on each of the topics, but I've definitely done that before, but I will run through them all just a little bit. Who can forget the OG classic? Back in 2022, Peter Dinklage took aim at the film for being backwards in its portrayal and use of dwarf characters, pretty much saying that movies like this shouldn't be exploiting actors with dwarfism for demeaning roles. Since he's such a big name, Disney kind of panicked, and probably overcorrected. They cast a lot of the roles as non-little people and turned them into freakish CGI renditions of the classic characters from the original movie, and of course, people weren't happy. We then have the casting. Lots and lots of angst surrounding the casting of the 2 leads, whether it was for race-related reasons, political-related reasons, or honestly, even talent-related reasons. There were lots of complaints and a massive uproar surrounding the casting of both Snow White and the Evil Queen. These have played massive roles in the film's discourse online, and in many ways have sunken its popularity. Let's not get it twisted though. As a live-action Disney adaptation/remake, it was always somewhat up against it. Back when these films started to get made, they were rather popular at first. They made a lot of money on them, and they did well with audiences. Over the years though, various factors have come together to shape a vocal dislike, at least in online spaces. At times it feels like they can't win, because if they change things then they're clearly thinking they're too good for the source material. But if they keep things too similar, they're being derivative. If they scrap the project, they're a soulless bastard putting people out of work. I'm not a stand for Disney in any respect, don't get me wrong. My days of giving big businesses and corpos the benefit of the doubt are long over. But in this regard, I do think they're a bit unfairly up against it. Thus, I think it would be hard to strike that balance. And as a result, Snow White's well and truly caught up in the midst of that discourse. It's been a long time since the world was given Disney universal acclaim for this type of content, I'll tell you what. This in turn brings us to the big fish, Rachel Zegler. Of course it is. She's already been part of some of the previous controversies listed here, but seemingly the biggest one these days is the fact that this woman exists and is acting in the film, and I think it all really sparked from a throwaway joke given in some random-ass interview years ago, and has since spiraled more and more. Pretty much the whole thing revolves around her making an unflattering comment about the original film released in 1937. She said, and I quote, "The original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her. Weird. So we didn't do that this time. We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is a love story just because we cast a guy in the movie. Andrew Burnap, great dude. But it's really not about her love story at all, which is really wonderful. All of Andrew's scenes could get cut. Who knows? It's Hollywood, baby." So already, just reading that, knowing how people on the internet can be, it was clear that this wasn't a great idea to say it. I will admit, it is a little bit weird. It is a strange thing to say because Snow White is inherently supposed to be a love story. That's the heart of the Disney adaptation, both romantic love with her and the prince, and the familial love that she and the dwarves come to bear for each other, which leads to the dwarves to hunt and kill the witch at the end of the movie. So yeah, on the one hand, I understand people looking at this statement as kind of stupid and out of touch with what people would be expecting to see. At the same time though, it also seems clear that this was a joke. This is the kind of commentary you'd make when you're bantering with your friends about silly moments in movies. You'd expect people would simply scoff at it, move on from the comment, chalk it up to a young adult making a joke that didn't land, and move on with your life. However, despite this obvious joke being an obvious joke, there's been a big groundswell of hatred towards this girl, and for the life of me, I don't get it. I mean, I know that it's been clear to everybody in the world for many years that there are some true degenerates out there that once they get an idea in their head, they can't let it go. I have addressed this specific issue of her getting a lot of hate before on this channel, but my god, it's gotten so much more pronounced since then. Seriously, go on social media, whether it's X or YouTube or Reddit or whatever, and you will encounter this. Since we're on YouTube, let's talk about that specifically. There are scores of creators who seem to only make content that is designed to make them angry. Some of them for sure have to be grifters, but I think many hold these thoughts in real life too. Videos talking about how Rachel Zegler ruined Snow White, Rachel Zegler stuck up, actors secretly shading Rachel Zegler in interviews, why Rachel Zegler's career in Hollywood is over forever. That sort of content, but they're not posting it just the once, they're doing it again and again and again, to the point that it really does seem like an unhealthy obsession. It's especially strange because, as we know, it's not like they just hated her from the start. Well, yeah, there were already the typical race-related hate videos and comments, but they were lesser in number. This specific quote, this very minor critique, this is what set them off. A big part of me wonders, why? Because let's be real, alright? The OG movie itself, whilst decent for its time, it's not like it's some bulletproof story either. It was a huge film for its time, but most of its interest and appeal comes from the colourful animation and the fantastical quality that gives the film. It's beloved for its excellent soundtrack that holds up even today, and is stylistically so different from the types of songs that we see in a modern Disney film. Those are the things I think of when I think about Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Do you know what I don't think about? I don't think about fleshed out characters, and I don't think about a rich, robust, and deeply written story. If you do think that Snow White has all of those things, I don't know what to tell you. The critiques do hold water. The characters themselves are paper thin, and we all know it. The romance is perhaps the most bare bones in Disney history. The dude is lurking on her at the start. He breaks into her backyard to talk to her. He turns up in the first song and is already by this point in love with her. He just saw her, but he's in love. He then vanishes for the rest of the movie, only to turn up and kiss her back to life at the very end, taking her off to be his wife. Truly the height of romance. Rachel clowns on this, like many people have done before, like I certainly have done before, and suddenly she's a miserable she-devil. Her quote largely talks about how you could take the romance subplot out of their version of the movie, and honestly, out of the OG movie, if we're being real for a moment, and nothing much would change. That's true. The crux of the narrative, the majority of the time we spend, is surrounding her surviving her evil stepmother's attempt on her life, and then her existence caring for the dwarfs. I guarantee that is the majority consensus on the film. It's fun, but it doesn't have much substance behind it. It's like a Disney dad. So those are by far the biggest comments that she made that I feel set people off. I will be reasonable and say it was fine to clown on them just a little bit at first. People are allowed to disagree. That being said, it's been 2 years. Over 2 years. And there's a wealth of stuff. A wealth of hate. That's right. It's been over 2 years. These people need to touch grass. I made the mistake of actually looking at some of this stuff in depth, as in looking through their channels. Just wall-to-wall hatred. There's no substance here. It's all insert name here, slams, insert name here. Random celebrity, shades, random celebrity, cancelled, raging, woke, etc., etc., etc. I can't understand. How are they so angry? Why are they so angry? Why let a movie that doesn't matter at all affect you like this? The way they behave is like this girl walked up and shot their grandma in the face and uploaded it for views. I get being defensive of your favourite movies and IP, especially if you have that childhood nostalgia, but there's always a limit. And judging by the people that I see making this hate content to begin with and raging on years later, I don't even think they are the same people that would have watched Snow White as a child. They don't seem like your typical Disney stans. They seem like they hate women. So what's going on? Why is it still happening years later? Why can they not let it go? Why is it reaching this fever pitch? It's because she's a woman, isn't it? That's the answer. She is a young woman who dared to have an opinion on the direction that she thinks the film should be going. Even worse, she's young, and thus she must be ungrateful for the opportunity she's been given. Not earned, given. Let's be real, if she was a dude and she said all the things she said, which I remind you was not much at the end of the day, nobody would give a shit. But she isn't a man. And so here we see years and years worth of cringeworthy obsession and hate directed at a 23-year-old. Anyway, the movie comes out soon, so hopefully we can put all this behind us before long. I won't hold my breath though. These people follow actors forever. So with all that being said, these have been my opinions, and now I'd like to hear yours. What do you think of all this Rachel Zegler stuff? Are you with me? Is it deeply cringe and pathetic, or do you for some reason think it's justified?
Please explain.
I'm curious for your thoughts, so make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let me know.